Let's start with a number that is, frankly, staggering: 150. That's how many countries received a threatening letter from the Trump administration, essentially a global shakedown note demanding better trade deals or else. The or else was of course a series of punishing tariffs. Before this latest escapade, these policies were already costing the average American household a cool $1,277 per year. Now, with the universal baseline tariff jacked up to 13% from a pre-Trump 2.3%, that cost is set to balloon. This isn't just some abstract economic theory, it's a direct tax on everything from your weekly shop to the pram you push your baby in. It's a self-inflicted economic wound dressed up as a show of strength. So, what exactly is this global trade war? Imagine you're at a pub and one bloke suddenly declares that everyone else has to pay him a fee for the privilege of sitting at the same table. That's Trump's strategy in a nutshell. He argues that other countries have been taking advantage of the United States for decades with unfair trade practices. His solution? To slap massive taxes or tariffs on the goods they sell to America. The idea, he claims, is to make American-made products cheaper by comparison and force other nations to come crawling back to the negotiating table, desperate for a new, fairer deal. It's a high-stakes poker game where the chips are global economic stability. The problem is, when you try to bluff the entire world, the world tends to call you on it. The grand plan to secure 90 deals in 90 days has spectacularly backfired. Instead of a flood of new agreements, the administration has produced precisely 0 legally binding deals. The much-touted framework with the United Kingdom, a country that accounts for a mere 3% of U.S. trade, explicitly states it isn't legally binding. It's the diplomatic equivalent of a pinky promise. Meanwhile, major players like the European Union facing 20% tariffs are not only refusing to play ball, but are also preparing a $100 billion retaliatory strike of their own. It's less a negotiation, and more a global Mexican standoff. This brings us to the great just kidding moment of April 2025. After announcing the so-called Liberation Day tariffs, which sent markets into a nosedive and businesses into a full-blown panic, Trump abruptly announced a 90-day pause. He admitted the whole thing was just a bargaining power bluff, a tactic to scare countries into submission. But the damage was done. This erratic, tweet-driven policymaking created a policy freeze, with businesses halting investment and hiring, paralyzed by uncertainty. The bluff wasn't just called, it was exposed as a chaotic, poorly conceived strategy that destabilized the very economy it claimed to be protecting. That pause is set to expire in just a few weeks on July 8th. Tick-tock. Now for the fundamental misunderstanding at the heart of this whole mess: who actually pays for tariffs? Trump has repeatedly and loudly insisted that foreign countries like China write a big check to the US Treasury. This is, to put it mildly, complete nonsense. Even his own former economic advisor Gary Cohn has confirmed it. A tariff is a tax, plain and simple. It's paid by the American companies that import the goods. And where do those companies get the money to pay that tax? You guessed it. They pass the cost directly on to you, the American consumer, in the form of higher prices. It's not a check from Beijing, it's a tax on your wallet. Let's look at some real-world examples, because this isn't hypothetical. Major retailers like Walmart and Target have openly stated they've had to raise prices by as much as 15% on a wide range of goods, directly citing the tariffs. Suddenly, that new television, those trainers, or even your weekly groceries cost more. The tariffs are particularly brutal on everyday items. Thanks to these policies, a baby's dress can be hit with a 41.5% tariff, and a woman's bathing suit with an eye-watering 54.9% tariff. This isn't making America great, it's making being an American more expensive, one purchase at a time, penalizing families for simply trying to get by. This regressive tax hits those with the least the hardest. If you're a billionaire, an extra 10% on a toaster is pocket change. But for working-class and low-income families, that same price hike can mean making difficult choices between essentials. A University of Michigan survey from just last month found that nearly 3/4 of American consumers spontaneously mentioned tariffs as a primary driver of their financial anxieties. They see it every time they go to a shop. It's not an abstract trade statistic, it's the reason their budget doesn't stretch as far as it used to, and they are rightly concerned about the rising cost of living. The scale of the financial burden is truly sobering. The average U.S. tariff rate now stands at 13%, a nearly 6-fold increase from the pre-Trump era. This isn't a minor adjustment, it's a fundamental shift in American economic policy. The 30% tariff on Chinese goods remains, impacting a vast array of consumer products. And pause threats hang over our closest neighbors, Canada and Mexico, with potential 25% duties looming. This isn't just a trade war with distant rivals, it's a policy that has managed to increase costs on goods from our allies and adversaries alike, leaving no American consumer untouched by the fallout. The international reaction to this tariff-by-threat approach has been a masterclass in collective defiance. Instead of rushing to Washington to sign lopsided deals, most countries are simply waiting it out. They see the political chaos and economic self-harm in the US and have concluded that patience is their best weapon. Nations like Japan, India, South Korea, and Thailand have stalled talks, unwilling to negotiate with a gun to their head. They are forming other alliances, strengthening trade ties with each other and with blocs like the EU, effectively building a global economy that is less reliant on the whims of the American administration. China, for its part, agreed only to talk again, not to any meaningful deal. This global resistance has been bolstered by the sheer ineptitude of the US negotiating strategy. The non-binding framework with the UK was a diplomatic own goal. It sent a clear message to the rest of the world. The Trump administration is more interested in flashy headlines than in substantive, legally sound agreements. European leaders have openly questioned the point of engaging in serious negotiations when the outcome is likely to be a flimsy, unenforceable document. America's credibility as a reliable trading partner has been severely undermined, making future deals, even sensible ones, much harder to achieve. The US is isolating itself on the world stage. There is a chilling historical parallel to all this, one that any student of economic history should know: the Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act of 1930. Passed to protect American farmers, it raised tariffs on over 20,000 imported goods. The result was catastrophic. Other countries retaliated with their own tariffs, global trade plummeted by over 60%, and the act is widely credited with pouring petrol on the flames of the Great Depression. We are witnessing a modern-day echo of that disastrous policy, driven by the same protectionist instincts and a willful ignorance of the consequences. History, it seems, is a lesson we are determined to fail. The key statistic that truly encapsulates the failure is this: despite threatening 150 countries and raising tariffs to their highest levels in decades, the administration has nothing concrete to show for it. No deals, no concessions, only higher prices at home and growing resentment abroad. A Bloomberg poll confirmed this, with over 70% of economists and fund managers stating the strategy only leads to inflation and uncertainty, not results. The grand trade war has devolved into a global standoff, with American businesses and families caught in the crossfire, paying the price for a historical blunder being repeated in real time. So, let's summarize this chaotic mess. We have an administration that launched a global trade war based on the false premise that other countries would pay for it. When that didn't work, it resorted to a massive bluff, threatening nearly every trading partner on Earth. That bluff was immediately called, resulting in 0 new trade deals, a stalled global economy, and a deeply embarrassing public admission that the whole thing was a negotiating tactic. The primary outcome has not been a boom in American manufacturing or a series of brilliant deals, but rather a direct and painful tax on American families, making life more expensive for everyone. The unexpected costs and global fallout are now impossible to ignore. The cost to the average household is already over $1,000 a year and rising. The policy has created immense uncertainty, causing businesses to freeze hiring and investment, which hurts workers and slows economic growth. Globally, America's reputation has been tarnished. Allies are looking elsewhere for reliable partners, and adversaries are exploiting the chaos to their advantage. This isn't just about the price of a washing machine. It's about the long-term health of the US economy and its standing in the world. This is the high price of governing by tantrum. Ultimately, this matters profoundly for families and workers because economic stability is not an abstract concept. It's the foundation of your job security, your ability to pay your mortgage, and your plans for the future. When a government pursues a reckless and erratic trade policy, it injects chaos into that foundation. It creates an environment where businesses can't plan, prices become unpredictable, and the risk of a wider economic downturn increases. The people who suffer most are not the politicians making the decisions, but the ordinary people who have to live with the consequences of those decisions every single day. So, where do we go from here? The first step is to recognize that tariffs are not a magic wand for fixing complex economic problems. They are a blunt instrument that often causes more harm than good. It's crucial for us to understand the real-world impact of these policies. What are your thoughts on using tariffs as a negotiating tool? Do you believe the potential benefits outweigh the cost to consumers and businesses? I genuinely urge you to look beyond the headlines and learn more about how global trade agreements are actually negotiated. Your wallet and the global economy might just depend on it.